Well, we have a quorum. We don't have Neil or Katerina. So, any announcements, Karen?
No, just people calling, wanting to join the water system. That's about it.
Really?
We're popular, huh?
Yeah, we're popular and they're crying about their bills.
Yeah. People wanting to connect in an existing system or anything new?
There's people who called this week that were they were already on the system. They want to do additional, and then the one with the multiple condos, like they have 5
Right.
condos on, but they're going to sell them and they're going to be individual. So,
Okay.
you know, just random stuff.
Um,
Can you hear me now?
We
Yes.
can.
Good. Sorry I missed you, Kurt.
No problem.
I'll have to give you my card. Numbers.
In addition to your people asking about service connections, Karen, we've also had a few calls, inquiries about people wanting to buy water from us. People in areas where we don't have service, but they have high salted or high salt water. There's a lot of saline in their water, essentially.
Wow. How would we do that?
Well, I mean, one of the things we have to do is look into what technology there is to, use tanker trucks to pump water to just basically distribute it to people who are not in an area that's currently on the water system. It's done in several areas around the world. I don't know about here in the States, but I mean, a lot of communities throughout the world rely on water that is trucked in and basically stored in a cistern or a below ground tank or something. They don't necessarily use it for drinking water, but if the water is so bad that you can't use it for bathing or washing clothes, things like that, that is a solution for people like that. So,
Well, we had to
So we
use a
gotta-
tank to,
say again?
we had to use a tank for the dredging. We had to get a truck to come over and hook up to the hydrant to get the water out of the hydrant to get it into the dredge.
For dredging? Why did they use water for that?
They needed it to pump water. They had to fill up the boat so they could do the dredging. So they bought a lot of water from us.
Yeah, they probably had tanks on the ship, Jim. And
Yeah.
that was potable water that they're using for cooking and for uses on board the ship. That would make sense.
I mean,
And
it was,
they probably couldn't hook up to one of the taps at here.
I mean, that's something we should be even considering if, boats have water storage tanks and they want to basically fill their storage tanks on a boat, even recreational boats I'm talking about.
They have hookups, Jim, at the pier, and I think all that water is metered through the harbor master, so we would be selling it to them anyway.
it is. We bill them.
I wonder if they bill the people for the water that they pump into a boat.
I doubt it.
Jim,
They got hoses running everywhere.
Yes, Tom.
had a camp in upstate New York. Not water available. The town, contract with a trucker.
I think you have to sit closer to the mic, Tom.
I used to have a camp. They didn't have water in all the areas.
Right.
Had a contract trucker, tanker truck. And you would call the tanker truck company. They would go get the water and pay it to the town. And they would do it. So it really worked very well.
Well, we had two inquiries last week from people who are out on, one is out on the end of Old Wharf Road and the other one is in the Pleasant Point area. I guess they've been looking for various solutions, to deal with the problem of one, lack of water in their well, or that the water is so salty. I mean, one person has approached us about wanting to start a committee with respect to harvesting rainwater, if that makes sense here in Wellfleet. I don't know that we have a reliable enough rainwater source, to encourage people to do that. But it seems
Yeah, it's
like
our
we have
well.
enough water. We have enough water in the ground if we could just get it to people, either by trucking it or whatever.
What's in the ground is rainwater. It's just filtered better.
That's right.
It's filtered.
It's filtered.
The water on my roof, I don't know.
So I see, Karen, you have you have two sets of minutes here, one
Yep.
from March 8th and one from March 29th. And let's see, Tom and Kurt were both at these meetings, so we can go ahead. We've got a quorum for voting that. And so if you want to get started with those, we can do that
Okay.
first.
You want to do them both together?
Yeah, do either of you, Tom or Kurt, have any comments on the meeting minutes from March 8th or March 29th?
Um,
And I do not.
no, and I think we have to do two votes, but
Well, let's start with the 8th. Okay,
yeah, I'd move that we approve on the minutes of March 8th.
and I will second that. We'll take a roll call vote. Tom? Is that an aye? Yes, aye, okay. Kurt?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So it passes 3-0. Okay. So then the next one is the meeting of the minutes, minutes of the meeting of March 29th.
I would move that we accept the minutes of March 29th.
And I will second that. Roll call vote. Tom? Aye, okay. Kurt?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So 3-0 in favor of approving the minutes of March 29th. Okay, thank you. So then we can move on to the any announcements around the water main project or the Boy Scout camp. I don't know, and I see Jonathan is with us, or John Aprea is with us.
No, John.
So I will start with the Boy Scout, with the water main project, Coles Neck. And I can just tell you that I spoke with Paul Millette from Environmental Partners late last week about this. And he has reached out to Dig for estimates on the cost to do the improvements that were identified in the second set of improvements that were identified, the abbreviated version. And he's waiting to hear back from Diggett at this point. So there really is nothing to report on that. As far as the Boy Scout camp, I know that Jonathan, before he went away on vacation, explained that he had gone out there with the service tech from South Shore Generator, and they did put a oscilloscope on the, I think it was, now you may have to help me here, John.
Yeah, he took
The
a
oscilloscope
look
is
at,
attached to the, was it
the output of the generator. They wanted to know what the generator was producing.
right,
And he said he had noise in the signal that, one of his comments was that could be cured with a filter on the VFD. And then there was an email that Kurt had responded to Jonathan's email. And Jonathan called me and he says, God, John, I don't know what to say. He goes, this is, this electronic stuff is kind of above us and we're relying on the professionals to give us a solid answer of what we need to do.
okay.
So that is what we're waiting for. I know Jonathan keeps calling and asking.
Well, I also know that Paul Millette just discussed this with Butch Nealon last week as well. And Butch is back next week, and I believe, and they have set up a meeting out there at the well site for when Butch is back. And Butch wants to see whether or not, if there were any adjustments made to the voltage regulator, whether or not that might help. That's what the intent is now for them to do. I'm not sure whether or not they're planning to ask the South Shore Generator guy to come back to be there with them at the same time. But I do know that, Jonathan will be back next week as well, right, John?
He'll be back on Monday, so he'll probably join them.
Good, all right.
And he also told me that there's still no word on the VFD, so that's not here yet. The new one that
So
you need.
that VFD is the one that's associated with
The well that's down.
the well that's being used, correct?
No, it's the other one. The well that's
So-
being used has a VFD and it's working.
Okay,
And the other well, the VFD does not work. In the case of emergency, Butch wired it so you could, turn it on, but that's bypassing everything. And that's the VFD is there to protect the well. So hopefully we'll be in good shape until that does come in.
okay. But that particular VFD that he's waiting on is not the one that's been operational then.
No, the one that's operational is just that operational. The other one
Yeah.
is not working at all.
So when they've had problems with running running the generator under load, that has been with the well that does work then.
I think, yeah, they may have done that. I know Jonathan decided that he only has one VFD. So he doesn't want to sit around doing a bunch of experiments, because if he takes that one out, then we're really in trouble.
Right,
So I think with the South Shore Generator guy came down, took all his readings and said, we still haven't got a straight answer. If I had one, I'd give it to you, but it's still, everybody has an opinion still so far, not an answer.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, and it's only from hearing, I think it was maybe Paul Millette said that thing did run the wells before.
Yes.
And Kurt, I went down there myself, all warm, dumb, and happy, went into the place, and I was covering for Mike at the time. I said, I might as well run the generator. I killed the power, the lights came on, everything was all wet, happy. And the wells weren't running. So myself, I can't honestly say that I've ever seen them run. I got in touch with Roy, and he's like, he thinks that they ran on the generator, but he really isn't sure himself, so.
Did I send you John, the note that Roy sent us about his workaround with that?
You didn't send me the note, I don't think. I think I saw something about Roy said it did run because he talked about it in the hurricane.
He said that there was at times what he had to do was when they'd lose power, and it switched over to the battery backup for the SCADA system.
Oh, yeah. I talked to Butch about that. That was quite a while ago. He said that won't do it.
Yeah, that he had to unplug it
Yeah.
from the battery backup, and then they could get the system to run.
Yeah, that's, I talked to Butch about that. He was strongly against it.
Right.
Again, he was speaking Butch at the time, so, I understood some of it, not all of it. So I just took his word that, he's right. I got the feeling that maybe what was happening is the battery backup just wasn't working, so he unplugged it to plug it into the power from the generator, and that brought the PLC back up again.
Right.
That's my guess, because if that battery backup happened to me once, I walked in and the whole plant was blank, nothing. And I went in the panel and I saw that had tripped out, and when I turned it back on, the whole plant came back up again. So maybe that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But I'm just not sure. And Bush said it has nothing to do with the generator, so I took him at his word.
Okay.
It seems like the generator, it seems runs fine. And when it's, there's something wrong with the load that's connecting to it.
Yeah, that's possible. I just don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the generator runs and it, and it seems like from everything that I've read, it looks like it's putting out what its rated capacity is. But as soon as you connect load to it, there's something wrong with the load that's being connected.
Well, the first thing our maintenance manager said was it's too small for the job. And that was a long, long time ago when we first brought him in. And then Butch said that. And then, South Shore Generator saying it isn't. We're told it ran. So what's unfortunate is I think when Butch gets back and they all meet up there and go through the paces, maybe we can get a solid answer. But for now, we don't have one.
Yeah, because Paul Millett said the generator was sized fine. It's above. It's basically above what it needs to be for, and I think that's for both wells, not just one. But
I'm sure. I'm sure. I don't disbelieve him.
But anyway, I don't know. Neil, you're muted. I don't know if he's on now. He's Jitterbug Smart. I don't know if he has any comments. Nope.
All right, so the next part of this is we're going to spend the rest of the meeting talking about the water rates and structure for service fees, and this is kind of follow up from the discussion we had with Doug Gardner at our last meeting. And
Hey, Jim, if I can interrupt for 1 minute, just for
Sure.
1 second. The very last note I had from Jonathan, I guess you're all aware, is that he's going to do the meter reading on April 18th. Whether you guys knew that or not, because I think the rest of the meeting is probably for you guys.
Yeah, does that make sense, Karen?
Yeah, I have them sending me the file on the 15th, and then we have a holiday on Monday because it's Patriots Day. So that week we'll go out and read the meters, and then we'll go through the readings and see which ones we have to, go and investigate if we have to. And then we'll send the finalized reads up to Pettichuck, and then they'll do the billing. So we're right on schedule.
Okay,
Hopefully we can get some money in before town meeting.
yeah. Good. All right, thanks, John.
Alrighty, you guys have a good night.
So as I was saying, so the rest of the meeting, I would like to spend talking about the water usage fees and the service fees for the water system. This kind of follow up to the discussion we had with Doug Gardner. And I'm going to kind of open this up a bit more so that we all get more comfortable talking about it and figuring out what we're going to do, because there are a number of questions still have to be answered regarding on the base service fees and also connection fees, what we should do with that going forward. So why don't we start with just a kind of review of what Doug had presented to us with the three-tiered approach. So he had three levels that he had proposed. The first tier was from 0 gallons up to 20,000 gallons in a 6-month period, would be all based on the lowest rate, and that was 0.00138, I believe.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, and that was for the first 20,000, and then from 20,000 to 60,000, the charge was you're gonna have to help me here, Karen. 0.
0.00942.
Okay.
Put it up there, Jim.
Pardon?
It's
Okay.
up
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Kurt.
And then the final one was for the anything over 60,000 gallons. And that would be at 0.01440. So Karen, if you could put that the screen up that the screen up that I had sent over to you.
Yep. Let's see if I can get this to, I did it. All right, there we go. How's that?
Okay.
You see, all see it?
Yeah. So
There you go.
the base service fee, the way that Doug had presented it to us, was there were two levels. There was the standard for all users on the system, current users on the system, was a charge of the base service charge of $125 twice annually. And then there was the other one was for those folks who had paid in to connect to the system, but had yet to connect to the system. And he was suggested a discounted base service fee of $100 per 6 months for those. So what I did was that I just did a few here, looking at what the average bills would be. This does not have to do with connection fees now, just the standard base service fee as well as the usage fees. So for if you have a customer who's connected to the system, but they didn't use any water in that 6-month period, the charge would be $125, the service fee. That's it. The next one that I used here was assuming a customer is connected and used 15,000 gallons used in the period. So the service fee charge would again be $125. And the water usage charge will be $20.70 for a total of $145.70 for that period. And then for someone who uses 20,000 gallons in that period, the service fee would be $125. And the water usage charge would be $27.60. The total then for that period would be $152.60. Going to, once it exceeds 20,000, then and let's say in the next level was, they say 30,000 gallons used in the period, the service fee would still be $125. And the usage fees would be $27.60 for the first 20,000 gallons and $90.40 for an additional 10,000 gallons. So the total charge for that 6-month period would be $246.85. And if a customer used a total of 40,000 gallons in that period, it would be $125 for the service fee, the standard service fee, and $27.60 for the first 20,000 gallons, and $188 for the additional 20,000 gallons, for a total charge of $341. Now, just to point out that the average usage for, like a single-family home or residence is around 20,000 gallons in a 6-month period. So if you take what it is there for in number 3, for 20,000 gallons in 6 months, and the service fee on that, at the usage fee of $27.60, the total's $152. So if you wanted to figure out what it would be for a year, and they used the same amount in each period, it would be just over $300 a year, $305.20, I believe. That would be for a full year's worth of water for the average user at home. So once it goes over the 40,000, obviously it's more expensive. And say a customer that's connected and they've used 60,000 gallons, then the total charges on that for usage and for the additional 40,000 gallons above the 20,000 gallons would be a total charge of $501.80. That you're running into more of the commercial usage, restaurant usage and the like. Anything over the 60,000 would be billed at the highest rate that we talked about before. So, any comments or questions on that? And if you look back at what Kurt had put up before, I don't know, Kurt, if you have that in front of you, you can put it back up.
Yep.
When Doug put the tiers together and looked at it and adding the service fee, it was quite close to what the current revenue structure is, except that the one area that in fact, in the usage rates, it was very close. In fact, even a bit less for those who were on the lowest tier. But where the difference is, there was the increase in the base service fee from $86 or $87 up to $125 for the 6-month period. This is the way we hopefully can address, building revenues into this, more revenues into the system. Any thoughts or reaction?
As I noticed with Kurt's paperwork, thank you, Kurt, for doing that. Columns, they're widely different. All each other also.
I mean,
No,
the big thing that I think what Doug was really aiming for with this rate structure was essentially to try to get, if you notice on this exhibit 1 that he's got put together, the general fund contribution is dropping by almost $50,000 under the proposed rates. So the proposed rates are collecting another almost $50,000. And his kind of, side thought was that he wanted to propose a rate structure that with growth over time, we would see the general fund contribution dropping over time.
Right.
So that was, another element of the change. And then obviously to simplify it, going from five blocks to 3 blocks. And Tom, the reason I wanted to send around that other thing is just, I think it's interesting how different towns are doing their rates. His proposed structure has, a very low first tier rate of that, 00138. Dennis, I think, starts out at $3, and their next tier is $3.50, and then their next tier is $4. So it's much flatter than this structure. This structure is very, very steep. So that's one difference. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But in the other, do you want me to throw up the other thing, Jim?
Yes, please.
Comparison. Let me just pull that up quickly. It's over here. So can everyone see that? One of the things that I found
Still on the same one.
I am. Okay, let me just stop and start again. Sorry. Is that the comparison now? Other towns?
Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
Okay. So the one thing that I noticed from this was that most other towns, many of the other towns don't have a connection fee at all. They actually, like, for example, if you look at Eastham, they charge an additional amount if the tap size is bigger. But what they're doing in Eastham is just, if the customer wants to connect, they get a contractor who makes the connection between the main and the meter, and they pay the cost for that. And that's the way their system works. Dennis is the same way. There's they basically just, in fact, in Dennis, the DPW does the connections, so they don't have subcontractors work in Dennis. If a customer calls, the DPW goes out, they will do an estimate for what they think it's going to be. That's the meter, the trenching, and the tap and the connection, the line, and landscaping, loam, seed, whatever. And then they provide that estimate to the customer, and that's what they pay as a connection fee. So it is all over the place. The other thing is that in terms of rates, again, if you look at Barnstable here, I try to convert those to, they use CCF instead of gallons. So 236 turns into $3.15 is their base rate, compared with,
Is that per 1,000 gallons then?
Yeah, that's per 1,000. Compared with what we've got, which is, I can just go down here a little bit.
$1.38.
Yeah, here's the well fleet rates. So what I would encourage everybody to do is kind of take a look at these other rates and just, again, at the end of the day, the structure is designed to collect an amount of revenue. And you can do that of a variety of different ways. You can decrease the customer charge, which means you're going to have to increase the water rates, the per gallon charge. And when you play around with those things, that's how you get a certain revenue objective. With a high customer charge, the way Doug has structured it, it's much more stable in terms of collection because if your water usage on the system goes up or down, it doesn't affect your revenue as much. So it's much more stable. It also means that's not providing much of a cost signal to the customer because they could use more water or less water, and frankly, it doesn't change their bill a whole lot. Most of the bill now is being collected through the customer charge. So the only other thing that I noticed from most other towns was, I mean, many of them are going to flatter structure. I did have an interesting call with this Jennifer Peterson from Mass Waterworks. So that's the organization that basically works with municipalities on everything related to water systems. And the links that I sent along to everybody are the links that she sent to me to direct us to best practices, rate design principles, everything related to what they're trying to do to improve the operation of water systems around the Commonwealth. So I didn't get a chance to look at that in too much detail to compare it to what Doug's proposed. I did ask her very specifically about the rate structures and having to do with one thing she said is everybody's going to multi-tiered rates. The DOR regulates municipalities strictly, and the DPW regulates the private water systems. So she said that's how the regulations may be, a regulatory agency may be a little bit different. But she said in general, what they're trying to do is move toward rate structures that do have a higher second or third block to encourage conservation. That's the general trend in rates. The other thing she said with respect to multiple people that would be multiple users on the system or multiple dwellings or residences, most other towns that have that situation, what they do is they do it by meter. So the meter ends up being the way that they do their rate structure. And so if you have one meter, the other towns are doing one customer charge, and there is a couple of other communities that are doing the block method, where you take if the block is 20,000 gallons, you would multiply that by the number of residences, so that particular location, each residence is getting the same kind of rate as what any other residents in town would get. If you didn't do that, and you had a lot of users on a single meter, what happens is the cost goes into the second or the third block, so they get progressively higher costs. And so that's one of the other things to be thinking about. I'm trying to think.
What's interesting is that the first tier that Doug proposed for us is like lower than much of many of the other towns.
Yeah, he's got a lower first block and then a higher service fee. So again, it's it's 6 and 1/2 and as the other. He's trying to hit a revenue target, and the only way to do that is a combination of service fee and usage fees. And philosophically, well, you get much more stable revenue generation with a higher service fee, but that doesn't provide much of a signal to the customer, because if they change their usage, it doesn't affect their bill very much. So, like Dennis's $3 per 1,000 compared to our $1.38. Eastham.
That's like that ends up being like for 20,000 gallons, that's like $60 compared to the $28 that's associated with our rate structure.
And then instead they're charging $84 a year, so they're probably getting to the same place.
Yeah.
that customer bill is going to look pretty similar to what we're talking about.
When you combine the base service fee and the water usage rates.
Right. The other thing that I learned, I did speak with Kim St. Aubin from Eastham. She's the water superintendent in Eastham, and of course, Eastham has a water superintendent. What she said was I asked her again about, different types of users and if they're doing anything, and she said, their basic structure again is no customer service charge. I'm sorry, no connection fee. Excuse me. I think I mentioned that already. They just have a private contractor do the connection, and they are looking at different rate structures for multi-users, because they do have a bunch of affordable housing units coming on, and then some developments that they're looking at. So they don't have anything at the moment, but they are looking to add some rates that would accommodate those type of users.
So that housing project, is that Tom?
No,
No, it's just you.
So that housing project that exists, the new one that was built off of Brackett Road, they don't have a rate structure for that yet?
They have what they're doing there is they have the master meter. So they have a single meter, and I'm not sure whether they're a 2-inch or a 4-inch there. So what they're doing is they're charging a little bit more. If you look at their rate structure, if you're a regular residential customer, you're paying 96. You're paying 96 per, I think that's per year, for a service fee. And if you're in, a larger meter, they've got a higher charge. So it's more than, it's just about double as they go up in meter size.
So they have a single meter, so there isn't, the 96 is there is no base or a standard like per gallon water rate then for them.
Yeah, the per gallon is the next column, and that is what they charge. So they charge a higher meter fee, higher, service fee. And then the charges that you see are the charges they apply.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. And how do they determine that? If they
Or
just
do
have-
we know if they're, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Karen.
Well, I was gonna ask, do we know if they're profitable and how many people are on the system? Because we can never get there where they are, because they have a lot more customers than we do. I think it's mandatory they gotta be on the water.
No, actually, I talked to her about that too. They are voluntary. And they're pretty
And how many
concerned.
people are on the,
She didn't tell me how many customers they have currently, because they're obviously, they're only about, I think, 2 years into their lines, maybe only 1 year into their lines being complete. And she shared that she's very concerned about getting customers connected. That's her number one concern.
Do they, so they have like a master meter, say like for that housing project, but how do they determine the water consumption at each unit then?
In Eastham, what they do is they just take, it's the master meter charge, so that's a single meter charge. And then whatever use the complex has, they take they take their rates and it's just the rate times the usage. So if they get into the large tiers, because it's a large user, they would get into their higher, toward that 750 per 1,000 gallons over 12,500. And I think what she was indicating to me was they think that's a problem, because they're going to have those locations are going to get into those higher tiers. And, there is a question about equity, given that those are individual residences really. And so, Doug's proposal was to take the block, if it's 12,500, and you multiply it by the number of residences to get what would be the equivalent to what a regular household would be using. So that was
divide.
no, you multiply the block by the number, so the block gets much bigger.
How is that helpful? I mean, if you and I,
Because what it would do is it would take, like, for example, our block is 20,000. And if we have two residences on that, what you would do is make the 20,000 40,000. So it keeps you in the lower priced water usage rate
I see
longer.
what you mean.
So, if you have 80 residences, you'd take the 20,000 times 80, and that would be your block. So until you used, whatever it is, 2 million, 8 times 2, until you used 1.6 million gallons, you wouldn't get into the next block.
The line is just, if I buy your beer and my beer, then later on we split.
It would be, I think maybe one of the things we ought to do would be to take this fee comparisons chart that you have here and translate it into, if every user was at 20,000 gallons for a 6-month period, how would that factor in both in service fee as well as water usage?
That's easy enough to do. Look at a 20,000 gallon typical bill.
Right.
See what it would cost in each town.
It would seem like, it looks like, just looking at the numbers here for the way that's structured at Eastham, it could be quite expensive even, unless you did have a unit method here. And even so, $1.80 for 1,000 gallons, or for 1,000 gallons up to 3,750 gallons, that exceeds what ours is.
I'll have to double check. I think that's quarterly. I think they're doing quarterly billing. So
Even so, if that's the case, then it's still.
Yeah, but I think they're doing quarterly.
But even if you did quarterly and you took it as that, and the standard of 10,000 gallons a quarter,
Right, pretty low.
that it still would be, quite, theirs would be much higher than ours.
Yep. Yep, it is. Although their service charge is $96.
Per year.
Yeah, per year.
And the other thing is that they have, it's also built into their tax rate, right?
Yes.
So what do we do next, Kurt?
Well, my thought was to, it's up to obviously the other board members, but I think there's a lot to digest. And I think it's worth looking at Jennifer's piece. I think what we have to decide is whether, whether we want to go with Doug's recommendation of a high customer charge and low water fees, as a basic strategy. If we want to do something else, we'd have to rerun rerun the model to see what the revenue generation would look like. But, you know, again, that rate structure is very stable and doesn't provide a lot of price signal to the customer in terms of usage. The second thing we have to think about is, you know, whether we go along with, Doug had recommended that we take for somebody who's got multiple residences, and we're thinking here about, you know, a condo association that might have 5 or 10 units, 95 Lawrence, which may have like 60 units, potentially Harborside Village with roughly, you know, 80 units. But as you have a number of units for a particular customer, what's the equitable way to charge that customer, either in terms of having a change to the block, so you increase the block size to make it, you know, fairer for each resident, and or how we charge based on based on the meter, whether there's whether you have multiple service charges for each resident, or whether there's a larger master meter, and how we would figure that in. Because each of those things is going to have a different impact on, anybody who's more than a residential customer. The only sort of unifying factor that I found today was they're changing the block for the number of residences, and then they're charging the service fees based on the meter. So they have a different, if the meter is larger, then it's a larger charge.
Right.
With the exception of Eastham, which hasn't really addressed that issue yet, and is letting the customer fall into the larger, the more expensive blocks, but keeping the service charge low.
Really complicated. If you have a place,
the only thing we got, Tom, was it's complicated. After that, you kind of cut out.
system where you divide it rather than multiply. You divide, then you charge that rate.
Yeah, you'll end up in the same place. I mean, it's the commutative principle of math. You can divide the rate by the number of customers, or multiply the block by the number of customers, and you end up in the same place.
On the street.
Try that once again, Tom. It cut out.
Trailer park or the housing, it would be, you have to create all these new blocks.
You cut out again, Tom.
We got to get his, we
I
have to
know.
get his system fixed.
You can, you could, oh, chat's disabled. I was just gonna say, you can type in chat.
You want to
Or-
let him chat?
Yeah, I would let him chat, or if he could call in, he could just, is there a dial-in number?
No, well, we'll work on that later. I'll send an email.
Excellent. This is,
Oh, okay.
I feel like it's really important to get your comments, Tom, and this is really important stuff. Same thing for Neil, and I'm sure Katri is going to have some comments too. I mean, I think we're engaging in a pretty fundamental shift, and it's going to affect all the users, obviously. And I think all the board members really, it's important that all the board members have some good input.
Can I propose that we increase the frequency of meetings and give ourselves some like homework of what we need to cover at the next meeting. Because I'm lost now. I want to go through like these various rates and see where we stand relative to the other towns, for example. And
Yeah, you want to pick a meeting, I'm happy to do that. In between now and then, what I can do is I'll do a sample bill for each town based on 20,000 gallons. So we see where we stand. And, you know, I can do some alternatives looking at, you know, different, you know, for example, if we had, you know, different approaches on the master meter, I guess is what that looks, what it boils down to. You know, sort of a cut for an example 10 unit condominium type thing to see what the differences would look like.
so let me ask you, Kurt, on the schedule that you have up here now, are you reasonably confident that these are in fact the numbers that are being used in those towns? Yes.
The only thing I'm not 100% sure about is making sure that the meter charge, when, for example, under Eastham, when you see 172, I want to be 100% sure that that's per year and not per quarter. And also make 100% sure when we see 180 per 1,000 gallons from 0 to 3750, if that's per quarter or something else. I think the service fees were annual and these are quarterly, but I just want to go verify all that.
Okay. Quarterly from all the towns?
No, because obviously ours is semi-annual.
And I see,
You know, Sandwich, I think is when you see 20,000, that's typically semi-annual. Or 0 to 15, like Mashpee, that's yeah, 6 month. Those are 6 months.
Sandwich is too.
Dennis is 6 months. I don't know if anybody's monthly, but I just want to, you know, this is I've sort of updated what was handed over from when, I don't remember whether Xanthi or
May have been
Rebecca
Michaela.
or Michaela, or yeah, somebody originally put this together. I went in and updated Dennis, and I updated Eastham, and I updated Wellfleet. I updated Barnstable, but I want to make sure that, you know, we understand what the billing frequency is. So billing frequency, and then doing a typical 20,000 gallon bill would, I think, be pretty helpful for everybody.
Right. So, right.
If there's anything else that somebody wants me to take a crack at, I'm happy to do that.
Well, we didn't talk about connection fees or the methodology. Like Doug had talked about the unit method here,
Right.
but I think we can make some assumptions if I don't know that any of these that are here on the chart reflect a unit methodology.
Jennifer mentioned one municipality, and I don't know which one it is, that is using the unit method. And what they do is they have, in that particular instance, they have a master meter. And so and I think the meter is it's a large meter, so they have a much larger service fee. And then they do multiply the block by the number of units to extend the block for that customer. Other towns, they go by, you know, if you take Dennis, for example, it's pretty different. If you had Dennis's really flat structure of 3, 350, and 4, when you are a large customer, it doesn't make that much difference. You know, so if you've got a master meter situation and you end up in the higher cost block, it's not really financially very onerous. Whereas with our structure, when you go, it's not, you know, when you're not looking at $4 in that tier, you're looking at, you know, $14 in that tier. That's a really big difference.
Well, if it like you're using the one from Dennis, was it the 3, 350 and 4? I mean, that at $3 for 20,000 gallons, it's $60.
Yep, and 84 in service fee. So they're still less than we are.
Right, absolutely.
So even though it's a much higher, you know, obviously per gallon charge, it's still a lot less. And that gives you a good example of what the difference is between having a low service fee and a much higher commodity charge.
Well, just using that though, sticking with that one for a moment, for comparing to Dennis, theirs would be, you said it was their service fee was 84
Right,
a year.
right,
That's it. Right. So even half a year, it's 42. Compared to ours, that would be, you know, like a little over $100 for water in a 6-month period for usage and service fee, compared to $152 on our system. But I assume they're paying for water in their taxes as well, at least the infrastructure.
right.
So when can we meet again? I think we have to stay on this.
I'm good for next week, the 19th. I mean, I can certainly get some things turned around for everybody, you know, get at least at the an example of the unit method for a 10 unit location, and then make sure that I verify the billing frequency and calculate the typical bills for the other municipalities.
Okay. So when you say the unit method, are you talking about like using our rates?
Yeah, using our rates and looking at the difference between using the unit method that Doug was proposing with, you know, increasing the block size, right? And then, you know, looking at the difference between that and having a service fee, which is either meter based. So for example, if let's just say, I don't know, if we used one of these other larger, let's say you had a 2-inch meter, there's examples here of, you know, 2-inch meters, what a larger meter rate would look like. So doing, again, master meter. The two people, both Jennifer and the woman that I spoke with in Barnstable, they said pretty much everybody charges their service fee based on the size of the meter. You know, and it's a single charge for the meter.
Well, if you want to run those numbers, I'm happy to kind of research through the state requirements for with respect to ensuring equitability in the rates, if there are any restrictions on that.
Yeah, and you could talk, Jennifer is the person. I mean, reach out to her because she's she is our resource. In fact, Mass Waterworks will also, provide assistance to us, with this, so we don't have to feel like we're on our own. But they're cataloging what all the municipals are doing and also obviously what the regulations are. Her links do include the best practices guide from the state.
Okay. And we have her contact information?
Yes, it's in that email that I sent with this, it's at the bottom, it's just below, in the last email that I sent. Both her contact information and the links to the state of Massachusetts resources.
The last email you sent?
Yeah, about just before our meeting.
Well, the only thing that's in there that I found in there is the schedule.
And below that should be her, here's the information that the state has compiled on rates. Just a little bit lower in that email.
I don't see it. This came up as a schedule.
Yeah, I can shoot it out again. If you look, let me just reply all and I'll shoot it out again.
Maybe got into junk. No.
Okay, there you go. Hopefully that works for you, Jim.
It hasn't come through yet, but
Hey, Kurt, can you take down your shared screen?
I certainly can.
Thank you. Sorry.
You don't want to read all my other emails?
No.
Careful what you ask for, Kurt.
Well, I know that this is really, really complicated stuff. I think it's worth us, at least moving through it as quickly as we can, but also really consciously and thoughtfully to try to get to a conclusion. I think at the end of the day, we're just trying to collect an amount of revenue, and it's really about, sort of how philosophically we want to do it.
okay, well, so next Tuesday, 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
me.
you gotta give me the agenda tomorrow morning. Jim.
That's right,
We
because
have a holiday on Monday.
Monday's a holiday, right?
Holiday Monday. Yeah, so I need
do
it tomorrow
that.
morning.
Yeah, this is the only topic is going to be this, so. I will
Okay.
send you that in the morning.
I
Or the-
don't think I can get the minutes done because I'll try, but I don't think I can get them done
Well,
tomorrow.
I don't think that's critical.
Okay,
And just so you know, Kurt, it still didn't come through. I don't know why.
Is it just blank?
No, I don't have an email from you.
Oh.
I look both in junk and in my regular inbox.
Application, I do show it as.
I got it.
So
I have it.
it's the one that says, here's the
I,
information.
I just got it. Yeah, I have it.
And if it still doesn't come through in the next couple of minutes, Jim, just give me a call.
All right. Thank you. So, anything else before we adjourn?
So the meeting's on the next week, right? On the
Next Tuesday,
19th.
4 o'clock.
Tuesday, the 19th,
Okay.
4 o'clock.
Can we get like Tom's computer to work, or can he come in, work with somebody else? Because we can't hear anything he says.
Yeah, I'll swing by his house, and worst case scenario, if we can't get his computer working, he can come over to my house, or I can come over to his house, but yeah,
Because we really do need his participation.
Okay.
Can
Do I
we
hear a
hear
motion?
Neil? Neil,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
great, we can hear you. Yay.
so next Tuesday, 4 o'clock,
Fine.
does that work, Neil?
Yeah.
Is that a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, but I'm trying to read Tom's lips here.
I'm gonna have to turn into a mime.
Yeah. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I hear a second.
Oh, there, I should be working now.
There it is,
There it is.
sometimes.
It goes
He's in and out.
It just goes in and out, Tom. We can't, I'll come over with my computer. We'll figure it out.
He needs, I think he needs one of those microphones that you put in front of him, because he's speaking into his computer. What he needs is one of those microphones. You can buy them at Staples and you plug that in and then he can talk to
Yeah.
that. It's like a mic that you, in the olden days.
Yeah.
It may also be a configuration setting, because sometimes the mic is just set wrong. And so it doesn't have the kind of capability that it could have.
Yeah. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yes, it was moved and seconded. I moved it,
Oh,
Neil
okay. So
seconded it.
then a roll call vote. Tom? Thumbs up? Yep, okay. Neil said yes, right?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, folks. And thank you for our guests here, Barry and Gail. Sorry for the confusion. We will see you folks next Tuesday.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jim.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye, Gail.
Bye, Karen.